On its final morning, the city of Sodom had no idea it was already dead. Beneath its golden domes and bustling markets, a rot was spreading that no one could see. Lot, nephew of Abraham, had moved here with his family, seduced by the fertile valley and the city's promise of wealth. His wife, Ada, adorned their home with fine things. Daughters Miriam and Lydia were betrothed to merchants' sons, William and James. That afternoon, Lot sat at the city gate when two travelers appeared, strangers with a stillness that unnerved him.
These men are not ordinary. If they stay in the square tonight, they won't survive. Come to my house. Wash your feet. Eat. You must not stay in the streets after dark.
The taller one nodded once. They followed Lot home without a word. Inside, Ada prepared a meal, proud of her hospitality. The daughters whispered about their upcoming weddings, but as the last lamp was lit, the city's night sounds began. Drunken shouts, predatory footfalls. Lot locked the door twice. The travelers ate in silence, their eyes never resting. They watched every shadow, every word.
Eat, please. It's not every day we host such distinguished guests. Our home is yours.
Tomorrow, William's father brings the bridal price. I can't wait to see William's face when he sees my dress.
Lot barely touched his food. He listened to every creak of the house, every shout from the streets.
Why did I bring them here? Every eye outside will have seen us. They know who enters my gate.
The silence of the travelers was heavier than any conversation. They knew something no one else did.
Why are you so quiet, husband? You've barely eaten. Is something wrong?
Because I can hear the city waking up to hunt, and we are the prey.
After the meal, the household retired to their rooms, but Lot stayed by the door, listening. Then, a low murmur began to rise outside, distant at first, then growing. Feet, voices, and they were coming closer. Suddenly, fists slammed against the door. Not a knock, a demand. Voices outside called for the strangers, demanding they be brought out to satisfy the crowd's depravity. Lot opened the door just wide enough to step onto the threshold. He raised his hands.
My friends, please, these men are under my roof. By the sacred law of hospitality, I beg you, do not harm them.
But the crowd only laughed. A rough voice shouted back, "We know your laws, Lot. Hand them over, or we will burn this house with you inside." Inside, Ada pulled the girls back from the door. Miriam began to weep. The travelers listened without a word.
I have 2 daughters. Take them instead. But do not harm these men who have come under my roof.
The mob roared with laughter and fury. They surged forward, pressing Lot against the door. The wood began to splinter. Lot braced himself, but the doorframe cracked. He could feel the weight of dozens of men pushing through. Inside, the travelers still sat, their faces calm. Outside, the door was about to give way. The travelers seized Lot and pulled him back inside just as the doorframe shattered. One raised his hand. From his palm, a white light exploded, blinding the mob instantly. Outside, men screamed and clawed at their eyes. Torches fell, bodies collided, and the street became chaos. The blinded mob stumbled back into the night, hands outstretched, crying out in terror.
We are not travelers, Lot. We are sent from the throne of God. At dawn, fire will fall. This city is judged. You must flee with your family, now.
Lot fell to his knees. Ada and the girls rushed in, their faces pale.
It's true. Everything I feared, true. But how can I leave? How can I convince them?
Delay, and you will die with the city. Once the sun rises, not one stone will remain.
Outside, the city slept again, deaf to its own doom. Inside, Lot knew he could not stay. Lot begged the angels for permission to warn his daughter's future husbands. They nodded once. He bolted into the night, sandals slapping stone, lungs burning. Every moment mattered. The merchant shop was washed in warm light. William and James lounged, cups in hand, laughter echoing.
William, James, you must listen. The men in my house, they're angels. The city will burn at dawn. We must flee.
Angels, Lot. You've had too much wine. Go home and sleep it off. Flee? And miss my wedding? No fire is coming, old man. You are seeing visions.
I saw it with my own eyes. They blinded the mob with a single hand. Please, I beg you, believe me.
William pointed to the door. James tossed a coin at Lot's feet. For your trouble. Then they shoved him out.
They think it's a joke, but when the fire falls, they'll remember my words.
Shattered and alone, Lot stumbled back through the streets. Only his household remained, and even there, resistance waited. Lot entered his home, breathless, and found his family gathered. Fear carved into every face.
Ada, we must leave, now. The angels say fire will consume the city at dawn.
Leave? Our home? The girls' weddings are next week. You expect us to abandon everything for a drunken vision.
She clutched the embroidered cushion, her knuckles white. The girls looked between them, panicked.
Mother, the angels struck those men blind. I saw it. This isn't a vision.
If you linger, you will share the city's fate. Do not cling to what must be destroyed.
The angels added a command that cut like a blade. Once you flee, do not look back. To look is to die.
They can't expect me to leave behind everything I've built. My jewelry, my linens, my life.
While everyone prepared, Ada slipped into the bedroom and hid a small bundle of gold bracelets and a silver cup inside her cloak. She convinced herself it was just a few tokens for their future. She did not know those trinkets would cost her more than she could imagine. Lot gathered his daughters. His voice was firm, but his hands trembled.
Take only water and bread. Leave everything else. Our lives depend on it.
But Father, our wedding clothes, Mother's jewelry, must we really leave it all?
They are things. Things can be replaced. You cannot.
In the corner, Ada watched them, her jaw tight. She pressed her bundled treasures closer.
A few bracelets and a cup. Just enough to start again. It won't slow me down.
The angels waited by the door, still as statues. Their faces turned toward the east. Outside, the first gray line of dawn touched the horizon. Time had run out. Lot's eyes swept over his family, his wife's rigid back, his daughter's wet cheeks. The world felt like it was cracking apart. Then, without a word, the angels moved. Dawn had come. One angel gripped Lot's wrist. The other took Ada by the elbow. They pulled them into the street. Ada's feet dragged across the threshold. She twisted her neck to stare at the oil lamp still burning in the window.
My lamp, my cushions. A lifetime of building, reduced to ash in a single morning.
Keep moving. Do not look back, woman. Not for your house, not for your things.
The streets were silent. Not a single neighbor called out. The blinded mob had crawled into corners, still clutching their eyes. The family stumbled forward, half running, their shadows stretching long and strange in the newborn light.
Keep moving. Don't let her stop. Don't let her look back.
The city gate loomed ahead, its bronze doors still open from the night, as if Sodom itself was waiting to spit them out. Ada slowed again, her fingers brushing the bundled treasures beneath her cloak, her face tightening. The angels said nothing more. They simply guided them toward the gate and the world beyond.
Run for the mountains. Do not stop in the valley, and do not look back, or you will die with the city.
Ada's hand tightened around the bundle hidden in her cloak. The silver cup pressed cold against her ribs. They passed under the bronze arch. The city spat them onto the open plain. Lot pulled his daughters forward, their sandals slapping the dust. Ada lagged, her legs heavy. Above them, the sky began to bruise. A deep red spread from the horizon like a wound.
Don't look back. Don't let them look back. Just run.
Miriam stumbled, and Lot hauled her up without slowing. Don't stop, he shouted.
So far from home, so far from everything. What will we even have?
The road to Zoar stretched ahead, a thin gray ribbon through the dust. The angels were gone, and then the first sulfur rock screamed across the sky. A long, low howl that shook the earth. The ground shook with every sulfur impact. Lot's lungs burned, but he did not slow. Behind him, Ada's footfalls grew fainter.
Ada, faster. You are falling behind.
Miriam and Lydia sobbed, their legs churning through the dust. They did not dare look back. Then Ada's heel caught a rock. She pitched forward. The bundle tore open. Gold bracelets, a silver cup, rings skittering across the dirt. She scrambled on her knees, hands lunging for the scattered wealth. In her panic, her head turned, and she saw the city walls. The smoke rising, the red sky boiling above it. For one heartbeat, she stared. Then a coldness seeped into her toes.
Ada, no?
She looked down. White crystals were climbing her ankles, spreading like frost. The salt crept up her calves. She tried to move, but her legs had become stone. The salt climbed her waist, her ribs, white crystal swallowing the woman she had been.
Lot, help me.
But her fingers had already turned white. Her arms solidified, mid-reach. Miriam screamed. Lydia buried her face in her father's chest, body shaking uncontrollably.
No, no, no. Not her. Please, not her.
In seconds, the salt swallowed her chest, her neck, her face, her expression frozen in a final, silent wail. Then silence. Where Ada had stood, there was only a pillar of white salt. Lot stared, his mind refusing to accept the shape before him. His wife, now a monument of regret. A deep groan echoed from the city, as if the ground itself was splitting open. The fire would not wait for grief.
Father, we have to go. Now.
Lot tore his eyes from the pillar. His wife was gone, but his daughters still breathed.
Run. Don't look back.
He seized Miriam's wrist and Lydia's arm, dragging them forward. The salt pillar receded behind them. A sulfur rock the size of a chariot wheel screamed overhead and slammed into the city wall, spraying stone and fire. The ground lurched. More streaks lit the sky, raining down on the streets he once walked. Lot did not look. He fixed his eyes on the hills ahead, his daughters sobbing beside him.
Don't stop. Keep running.
Behind them, the city began to roar. A deep, hungry sound of collapsing stone and screaming voices. They stumbled up the rocky slope, the heat of the first impacts licking their backs. The sulfur rain thickened. Every second brought death closer. The entire southern quarter erupted in a geyser of fire. Houses that stood for generations vanished in a breath. In the merchant district, the shop of William and James began to shudder. Cracks raced up the walls. A ceiling beam crashed down, pinning William's leg. The laughter from hours ago was gone.
I hear it! The fire! Lot was right!
Then the shop imploded, a furnace of flame swallowing their final screams. On the hillside, Lot heard the distant wail of falling stones and did not slow. His breath came in ragged gasps. Miriam collapsed to her knees, chest heaving. Lydia pulled at her arm, but her own hands shook violently. They had reached the lower slopes. For the first time, Lot allowed his eyes to turn. The city was a cauldron of fire. Every street he knew, every face was ash.
Mother.
Lot sank to his knees. A howl tore from his throat, raw, broken, the cry of a man who had lost everything. Miriam and Lydia threw themselves around him, their sobs mingling with the roar of the burning valley.
Ada, I couldn't save her. I couldn't save any of them.
The sulfur continued to fall. Each impact sent a tremor through the earth beneath them. The fire consumed everything. The market, the temples, the laughter that had echoed there that very morning. From the hill, the city looked like a gaping wound in the earth, bleeding fire and smoke into the sky. A massive curtain of flame descended, swallowing the remaining walls. The screams fell silent.
I lived in that city. I walked those streets. Now it's nothing but ash.
His daughters clung to him, the only solid things left in a world reduced to cinders. The smoke rose higher, a black monument over the valley, visible from 100 miles away. Then, as if a divine bell tolled, the sulfur ceased. The firestorm paused. An unnatural silence fell, broken only by the distant groan of settling stone. Lot lifted his head, his eyes swollen and raw. The world he knew was dead. He pulled his daughters to their feet. Their clothes were gray with ash, their faces streaked. They stumbled higher, not looking back. Behind them, nothing stood. Not a wall, not a gate. Far across the valley, on a distant ridge, an old man stood. Abraham. He had risen before dawn, driven by a dread he could not name. He had pleaded with God for this city. Now, he saw the smoke go up like a great furnace, and he knew his prayers had not been enough. His fist closed around his robe, knuckles white. A single tear traced through the dust on his cheek. He did not speak. There were no words for what burned below. Below them, the valley that had been Sodom was a black scar of ash and salt. Nothing moved, and in the center of that desolation, a single white pillar still stood. It was Ada, frozen mid-reach, her face a mask of silent regret. Miriam and Lydia clung to each other, their sobs swallowed by the wind.
Why couldn't she just let go? Why did she need those things?
Because she never believed the fire would come. She thought she could keep both worlds.
A silver cup and a gold bracelet. That was all it took to steal my wife.
Lot looked at the pillar one last time, then turned his back. He would never look back again. The most prosperous city in the region had disappeared in minutes. No one ever found its remains. He led his daughters away from the edge. Behind them, the valley was silent. They stumbled down the far slope, the smoldering valley at their backs. Ahead, a tiny cluster of stone huts hugged the base of the next mountain. Zoar. Lot led his daughters toward it, their feet dragging through ash. They were the only souls who had crossed the plain that morning. On the distant ridge, Abraham still stood, a solitary figure against the smoke. He lowered his hands from his face, eyes red and swollen.
Did my prayers mean nothing? Could not even 10 righteous save it?
There was no answer, only the wind and the distant crackle of dying embers. Below, Lot and his daughters became small gray figures, swallowed by the shadow of a world that had ended. Neither Lot nor Abraham could see each other, but both were caught in the same silence, the golden domes of Sodom, the laughter in the markets. They vanished as if they had never been. Not a single stone remained standing after the firestorm descended that morning. The salt pillar was the only marker, a woman who could not release her grip on a doomed world. William and James, who mocked the warning with laughter, found their shop collapsing around them. Abraham, who had pleaded with God for mercy, watched the smoke rise like a furnace and wept. Sodom was not simply destroyed. It was erased from the earth, as if to leave no scar. For centuries, travelers avoided that valley. Nothing grew there. Nothing lived. Nothing lived. No one ever found its ruins. Not a single stone bearing the city's name. The most prosperous city in the region had become a story, a warning whispered in the wind. And the only proof that it ever existed was the pillar of salt, standing in the silence. Days later, the smoke finally lifted. A lone traveler crossed the valley, his sandals crunching on salt. He saw no city, only a white wasteland stretching to the horizon, silent and unbroken, and, at its heart, a single pillar, human-shaped, weeping salt crystals that caught the sun. He did not know her name. He only knew that something terrible had happened here. The most prosperous city in the region had disappeared in minutes. No one ever found its remains. Time began its slow work. The pillar of salt, exposed to wind and sun, started to erode. A chip fell from her outstretched arm. Then, a crack formed along her back. Soon, the shape would be unrecognizable. A few more seasons, and it would be nothing but a pile of white dust. And then, even that would be carried away by the wind. The valley became a dead place, a scar on the earth, with no monument to the thousands who died there. Years later, in a land that did not know the name Sodom, an old man sat by a flickering fire. His 2 daughters, now women in their 40s with gray-streaked hair, sat wordless at his side. Their eyes were fixed on the dancing flames, but they did not see fire, only memories. Lot's face was a map of grief. Every line a scar from that morning. A single tear escaped, cutting a silent trail through the dust of a lifetime. He made no move to wipe it away. It simply fell, unnoticed. The fire crackled and spat, but the silence between them was thick as the smoke. He never spoke of that night again. Not once. Not to his daughters. Not to anyone. The camera pulls back, the fire shrinking to a tiny orange speck against the infinite night. And above, the stars that had witnessed Sodom's fall continued their silent watch, as if nothing had ever happened. The camera continued its slow retreat from the dying campfire, shrinking to a tiny speck against the night. The vast darkness swallowed the last light, reclaiming the ancient silence of the wilderness. Below, on the plain where Sodom once stood, nothing moved but the mournful wind over salt. For centuries after, The valley remained a dead place. No shepherd, no traveler, no life. The Jordan still flowed, but no village drew water from its banks in that stretch. The earth itself remembered the fire, refusing to let anything take root in the poisoned ground, and the salt pillar, the last witness, crumbled into dust and was carried away by the wind. All that remained was the story, a tale passed from father to son, a warning in the dark, and the valley of Sodom remained a wasteland forever. No monument, no ruins, only salt and silence. The camera lingers on the salt pillar, now a weathered silhouette under a cold moon. It was the only thing left standing, the last monument to a forgotten city. No one came to mourn. The valley remained empty, silent and still, but the story lived on, passed from generation to generation. The warning of Sodom, do not look back, the angels had said. Do not cling to what must be destroyed. The pillar was proof that a backward glance could cost everything. It stood as a silent witness to the fire that erased the most prosperous city. This was the Valley of Sodom, the last night before the fire of God. And that fire turned an entire civilization into this, salt and silence. What life was like in Sodom, the last night before the fire of God destroyed the city,